Snow fell silently across the Afghan mountains on December 24th, 2019. 3,000 meters away from her target, a figure no taller than most 12-year-olds lay perfectly still behind a Barrett M82A1 sniper rifle. The wind howled at 35 miles per hour, visibility was near zero, and the temperature had dropped to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Most snipers would have called it impossible. The math alone was staggering, accounting for bullet drop, wind drift, and the Coriolis effect over such an extreme distance. But Maya Chen wasn't most snipers. At just 4 feet 9 inches tall and weighing barely 110 pounds, she had endured years of ridicule, doubt, and dismissal from her fellow Navy SEALs who nicknamed her doll behind her back. Tonight, 9 heavily armed insurgents held 15 American hostages in a fortified compound. A rescue mission had failed. Air support was grounded due to weather. The hostages had less than 6 hours before their execution was set to begin. Command had run out of options, except for one. The smallest SEAL in naval history was about to take the longest confirmed kill shot ever recorded by a female sniper. What happened next would not only save 15 lives, but forever change how the military viewed the power that comes in the smallest packages. This is the true story of how Christmas Eve became the night that Maya Chen proved size means nothing when you have the heart of a giant. Maya Chen stood at the back of the line during her first day of Navy SEAL training, trying to make herself invisible. At 4 feet 9 inches tall, invisibility should have been easy, but somehow she felt like every eye in the compound was on her. The other recruits towered over her like redwood trees, their massive frames casting shadows that seemed to swallow her whole. "Chun," barked Instructor Williams, a mountain of a man with arms like tree trunks and a voice that could wake the dead. Front and center. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as she jogged to the front of the formation. The sand felt hot beneath her boots even in the early morning hours. Behind her, she could hear the whispers starting. "Is that a kid? She's got to be lost. Maybe she's someone's daughter." Williams looked down at her with the kind of expression usually reserved for something unpleasant stuck to the bottom of a boot. He held her file in his massive hands, flipping through it slowly. Maya kept her eyes forward, her spine straight, even though she wanted nothing more than to disappear into the ground. "Says here you scored perfect on every written exam," Williams said, his voice carrying across the silent formation. "Says you can run a 6-minute mile and do more pull-ups than half the men in this class." "Yes, sir," Maya replied, her voice clear and strong despite the butterflies doing aerial acrobatics in her stomach. Williams circled her like a shark, his boots crunching in the sand. "It also says you're 4 foot 9 inches tall and weigh 108 pounds. That true?" "Yes, sir." A few snickers rippled through the formation behind her. Williams stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she had to crane her neck to look up at his face. "You know what I think, Chun?" "No, sir. I think somebody made a mistake. I think you wandered into the wrong line. Maybe you were looking for the Girl Scouts." The laughter was louder now. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her expression neutral. She had heard worse. Much worse. "Sir, I belong here," she said quietly. "Speak up, Chun. We can barely hear you down there." "I belong here, sir," Maya shouted, her voice carrying with surprising force for such a small frame. Williams studied her for a long moment. Then, he turned to address the entire formation. "Listen up, maggots. This little girl thinks she can be a Navy SEAL. What do you think about that?" The response was immediate and loud. "No way. She'll quit by lunch. Send her home to mommy." Maya felt each word like a physical blow, but she kept her chin up. She had known this moment would come, had been preparing for it her entire life. Williams turned back to her. "Here's what's going to happen, Chun. You're going to go through every single exercise with these men. Every push-up, every run, every drill. When you fail, and you will fail, you're going to ring that bell over there and walk away. No shame in it. This just isn't a place for little girls." "I understand, sir." "Do you? Do you really? Because when you're hanging from that rope 50 feet up and your little arms give out, there won't be anyone coming to catch you. When you're drowning in 30 feet of water with full gear, nobody's going to swim down and save you. This isn't summer camp, Chun. This is life and death. Maya looked up at him with eyes that held more determination than Williams had seen in recruits twice her size. I wouldn't be here if I planned to quit, sir. Something flickered across Williams' face. It might have been respect, but it was gone so quickly Maya wasn't sure. We'll see about that. All right, maggots. Time for your morning PT. 50 push-ups now. The formation dropped to the sand. Maya hit the ground with everyone else, her small hands spreading wide for stability. Around her, massive frames pumped up and down. She kept pace, her form perfect, her breathing controlled. Faster, Chun. My grandmother moves faster than that. Maya picked up the pace, her arms burning but never wavering. She finished with the middle of the pack, sweat beading on her forehead but not breathing hard. Sit-ups. 100. Again, Maya matched the pace. Her core, compact and strong, powered through the exercise without strain. A few of the larger recruits were already showing signs of fatigue, but Maya looked like she was just warming up. Mile run. Last one back, cleans the latrines for a week. The formation took off across the compound. Maya's short legs moved like pistons, her stride efficient and smooth. She had learned long ago that technique beat brute force every time. While the bigger men thundered along beside her, burning energy with every heavy footfall, Maya seemed to glide. By the quarter-mile mark, she was in the middle of the pack. By the half-mile, she was moving up. At 3/4 of a mile, she was in the top 10. And, as they rounded the final corner, Maya-chan, all 4 feet 9 inches of her, sprinted past 3 men who outweighed her by more than 100 pounds each. She finished 4th out of 32 recruits. Williams was waiting at the finish line, stopwatch in hand. His expression was unreadable as the rest of the formation straggled in behind her. 6 minutes, 12 seconds, he announced. Not bad for a Girl Scout. That afternoon brought the rope climb. 50 feet of thick manila rope hanging from a platform that seemed to touch the clouds. Maya watched as recruit after recruit powered up the rope, their massive arms and shoulders making the climb look easy. Chun, you're up. Maya approached the rope, her hands already chalked. She looked up at the platform far above and took a deep breath. Around her, she could hear the whispers starting again. She'll never make it. Look at those little arms. $10 says she doesn't get halfway. Maya wrapped her hands around the rope, feeling its rough texture against her palms. Then, she started to climb. The key was technique. While the bigger men relied on pure arm strength to haul themselves up, Maya used her legs. She wrapped the rope around her right leg, creating a step, then pushed up with her powerful leg muscles while using her arms for balance and guidance. Up she went, smooth and steady. The men below grew quieter as she rose higher, their jeers turning to surprised murmurs. 30 feet, 40 feet, 45. Maya's arms were screaming now, but she didn't slow down. She had come too far to quit, had sacrificed too much to give up now. With a final push, she grabbed the platform and hauled herself up. Below, the compound was silent except for the sound of wind across sand. Williams was staring up at her with something that might have been amazement. Time, he called out. 52 seconds. It was the 3rd fastest time of the day. That evening, as the recruits sat around their dinner trays, Maya found herself eating alone. She had expected this. The others saw her as either a curiosity or a threat, and neither one led to friendship. Mind if I sit? Maya looked up to see Jackson Torres, a massive recruit from Texas who stood 6'4" and looked like he bench-pressed trucks for fun. He was one of the few who hadn't laughed during the morning formation. It's a free country, Maya said, moving her tray to make room. Jackson sat down, dwarfing the metal chair. For a moment, they ate in silence. You did good today, he said finally. I did what I had to do. That rope climb was something else. You made it look easy. Maya shrugged. Physics. Leverage beats brute force. Jackson laughed, a deep rumble that made nearby recruits look over. My little sister would like you. She's always talking about how being small is actually an advantage. Smart sister. Yeah, she is. Wants to be a pilot. Navy keeps telling her she's too short, but she won't give up. Maya nodded, understanding. What about you? Why SEALs? Jackson's expression grew serious. Lost my dad in Afghanistan when I was 15. Figure I owe something back. I'm sorry. What about you? If you don't mind me asking, This isn't exactly the obvious choice for someone your size. Maya was quiet for a long moment, pushing food around her tray. Finally, she looked up. My parents came here from Taiwan with nothing. My dad worked 3 jobs to put me through school. One night when I was 12, our apartment got broken into. 3 guys with guns, looking for money we didn't have. She paused, the memory still sharp even after all these years. My dad tried to protect us. They beat him so bad he was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I watched the whole thing, hiding behind the couch, too scared to move, too small to help. Jackson waited, sensing there was more. That night, I decided I never wanted to feel that helpless again. Being small doesn't mean being weak, but I had to prove it to myself first. And now, Maya smiled, the first genuine smile Jackson had seen from her. Now I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. Height requirement or not. As the weeks passed, Maya continued to surprise everyone, including herself. She excelled at marksmanship, her small frame providing a stable shooting platform, and her steady hands producing tight groupings that made the instructors take notice. She was fearless in water training, her compact body slicing through the ocean like a knife. But it was during Hell Week that Maya Chen truly showed what she was made of. Hell Week was exactly what it sounded like. 5 days of continuous training with minimal sleep, maximum physical stress, and psychological pressure designed to break even the strongest candidates. Recruits carried boats over their heads, crawled through mud under barbed wire, and performed endless exercises in the freezing surf. By day 2, 6 recruits had rung the bell and quit. By day 4, that number had climbed to 12. Maya was still there. She carried her share of the boat despite being half the size of her teammates. She never complained when the instructors singled her out for extra attention, which they did constantly. When other recruits began to crack under the pressure, Maya remained steady. "Look at little Chun," Williams said as they stood in the surf at 2 in the morning, ice-cold water pounding against their legs. Still standing while big, strong men are falling all around her. Maya said nothing, but her teammates began to notice. During boat carries, they started positioning themselves to take some of her load. During meal breaks, they made sure she got enough food. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Maya was becoming part of the team. It was Jackson who finally put it into words. "You know what, Chun? You might be small, but you got more heart than half these guys." By the end of Hell Week, only 18 recruits remained out of the original 32. Maya Chun was one of them. Williams approached her as she sat on the beach, exhausted but unbroken. "I was wrong about you, Chun," he said quietly. Maya looked up at him, too tired to be surprised. "You proved something out there. Not just to me, but to everyone watching. Size doesn't determine heart." "Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. Hell Week was just the beginning. The real training starts now." As Maya watched the sun rise over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, she felt something she had never experienced before. She belonged here. She had earned her place not through special treatment or lowered standards, but by proving that determination could overcome any physical limitation. The other recruits no longer called her names behind her back. If anything, they were in awe of what she had accomplished. And Williams, the man who had wanted to send her home on day 1, was now her biggest advocate. But Maya knew the hardest challenges still lay ahead. SEAL training was about more than physical endurance. It was about becoming a weapon, a protector, a guardian of freedom itself. She had proven she could hang with the best. Now she had to become one of them. 2 years after Hell Week, Petty Officer Maya Chen stood on the deck of the USS Independence, watching the coastline of Syria disappear into the morning haze. Her sniper rifle case was secured beside her, containing the weapon that had become an extension of herself. The Barrett M82A1 was almost as long as she was tall, but in her hands, it was poetry in motion. The other members of SEAL Team 7 clustered around a tactical display, their faces grim in the red light of the ship's interior. Maya joined them, her small frame easily finding space between the larger operators. "All right, listen up," said Lieutenant Commander Harris, a veteran operator with 20 years of experience and scars to show for it. "Intelligence indicates high-value target Ahmed Qasim is holed up in a compound approximately 2 kilometers inland. This guy's responsible for 3 IED attacks that killed 18 of our people. Maya studied the satellite photos spread across the table. The compound was a fortress of concrete and steel, surrounded by guard towers and razor wire. "What's the approach?" asked Torres, who had made it through training alongside Maya and become one of her closest friends in the teams. "That's the problem," Harris replied. "Conventional assault is out. Too many civilians in the area, and intel suggests they're using human shields. Air support is compromised due to the proximity to a hospital and school. So what are you thinking?" This from Rodriguez, the team's demolitions expert and a man who could make anything explode with enough creativity. Harris pointed to a ridge line overlooking the compound. "Long-range elimination. Single shot, clean kill, minimal collateral damage." All eyes turned to Maya. She was the team's designated marksman, the one they called when precision was more important than firepower. "Range?" she asked, already calculating variables in her head. 2,800 meters. Maybe a little more, depending on exact positioning. Maya nodded slowly. It was a difficult shot, but not impossible. She had made longer ones during training. Wind conditions? Variable. 6 to 12 knots from the southwest. When? Tomorrow night. New moon, minimal visibility. Kasim has a meeting scheduled at 2200 hours. Intelligence suggests he'll be visible for approximately 30 seconds as he moves between buildings. Maya felt the familiar calm settle over her. This was what she had trained for, what she had endured years of doubt and criticism to achieve. One shot, one kill, and 18 American families would have justice. "I'll need Torres as my spotter," she said. Harris nodded. "Consider it done. You'll insert via helicopter at 1930 hours, hike to the ridge, and be in position by 2100. Extraction will be at 2300 hours at the same LZ." As the briefing broke up, Maya headed to the armory to check her equipment. The Barrett M82A1 was a massive weapon, designed to stop vehicles and penetrate body armor at extreme range. In the hands of most snipers, it was devastating. In Maya's hands, it was surgical. She field-stripped the rifle with practiced efficiency, checking every component for wear or damage. The scope was her most precious asset, a Schmidt and Bender capable of precise ranging and compensation for atmospheric conditions. She had spent thousands of rounds learning its characteristics, until adjusting for wind and elevation was as natural as breathing. "Nervous?" Torres asked, joining her at the workbench. "Always," Maya replied, reassembling the rifle's bolt. "But it's good nervous. Keeps me sharp. Remember that shot you made during training? The one at 3,200 meters. Maya smiled at the memory. It had been during an advanced marksmanship course, and the instructors had set up what they considered an impossible target. A silhouette at the absolute maximum effective range of the Barrett, with crosswinds that should have made hitting anything smaller than a building pure luck. Maya had taken her time, reading the wind through her scope, watching grass and dust devils for clues about air currents. She had calculated bullet drop, accounted for the rotation of the earth itself, and squeezed the trigger with the patience of a saint. The bullet had taken nearly 4 seconds to reach the target. For seconds during which wind could change, the target could move, or any number of variables could turn a perfect shot into a complete miss. Instead, it had been a dead center hit. The instructors had been speechless. Several had demanded to examine the target, convinced that the hit had been a fluke. But when they set up the shot again, Maya had repeated the performance. That was when the nickname started. Not Doll anymore, but Ghost. Because her bullets seemed to find their targets through some supernatural ability, appearing without warning and disappearing without trace. "That was different," Maya said, cleaning the rifle's barrel with methodical precision. "This is real. Real consequences if I miss." "You won't miss." Maya looked up at her friend, seeing the absolute confidence in his eyes. It was humbling and terrifying at the same time. An entire team was betting their mission, and potentially their lives, on her ability to place a bullet exactly where it needed to go. The next evening, Maya and Torres crouched in the helicopter as it skimmed low over the Syrian countryside. The pilot was flying without lights, using night vision and terrain-following radar to stay below enemy detection. Maya's stomach lurched with each sudden altitude change, but her hands remained steady on her rifle case. 2 minutes to LZ. The pilot's voice crackled through their headsets. Maya performed a final equipment check. Rifle secured, ammunition verified, communications tested. Her ghillie suit would provide camouflage once they reached the ridge line. Most importantly, her range card was memorized. Every distance marker, every wind call, every detail that might affect her shot. The helicopter flared to a hover 6 feet above a rocky outcropping. Maya and Torres fast roped to the ground, shouldered their packs, and melted into the darkness as the aircraft disappeared into the night. The hike to the ridge took 40 minutes. They moved slowly, carefully, avoiding established trails and stopping frequently to listen for enemy activity. Maya's smaller size was an advantage here. She could move through terrain that would snag or slow down a larger operator. Finally, they reached their firing position. Maya spread out her shooting mat while Torres set up his spotting scope. Below them, the compound was visible as a collection of lights and shadows, looking deceptively peaceful in the darkness. Range to primary target building? Maya asked, settling in behind her rifle. Torres adjusted his scope, taking multiple readings. 2,847 meters. Maya dialed the correction into her scope, then began reading the wind. A flag hung limp near the compound, but dust drifted lazily from left to right. Higher up, she could see stars flickering through atmospheric distortion, indicating air currents at multiple levels. Wind call: 4 knots from southwest at ground level. Variable aloft. Maya adjusted her scope again, then settled into her shooting position. The Barrett's bipod legs dug into the rocky ground. Her body became perfectly still, her breathing slow and controlled. At 2,158 hours, vehicles began arriving at the compound. Movement at the main entrance, Torres reported. Multiple personnel entering the building. Maya watched through her scope, her crosshairs centered on the doorway where intelligence suggested Qasim would appear. The wait was always the hardest part. Minutes stretched like hours when you were lying motionless, fighting the urge to shift position or scratch an itch. At 21:59, a figure appeared in the doorway. Possible target, Torres whispered. Adult male, correct height and build. Maya tracked the figure through her scope, but something didn't feel right. The man's posture was wrong, his movement too casual. Negative, she whispered back. Not our guy. The figure disappeared back inside. 2,200 hours came and went. Then, 2201. 2,202. Where is he? Torres muttered. Maya remained patient. Intelligence was rarely perfect, especially regarding exact timing. If Qasim was going to appear, it would be soon. At 2203, the door opened again. This time, Maya felt the certainty settle over her like a blanket. The figure in the doorway matched every detail from the briefing photos: height, build, distinctive beard, and the way he moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to being protected. Target acquired, Maya whispered. Confirmed, Torres replied after studying the figure through his own optics. Ahmed Qasim. Maya's breathing slowed to almost nothing. Her heart rate dropped as muscle memory took over. She had fired this rifle thousands of times, knew exactly how it would react, exactly where the bullet would go. The crosshairs settled on Qasim's center mass. Maya's finger found the trigger, applying slow, steady pressure. Then, Qasim moved. He stepped sideways, almost out of view, pausing to speak with someone still inside the building. Maya tracked him smoothly, but now she had only a partial profile instead of a full frontal shot. Still a good shot, Torres confirmed. Maya's finger continued its slow squeeze on the trigger. In her mind, she could see the bullet's path, a shallow arc across nearly 3 kilometers, dropping almost 30 feet due to gravity, drifting slightly right due to wind. The Barrett roared. The massive rifle bucked against Maya's shoulder, its muzzle flash lighting up the ridge line for a split second. Even with her hearing protection, the sound was overwhelming in the quiet night. Through her scope, Maya watched the bullet's impact. Qasim dropped instantly, his body crumpling to the ground. Secondary explosions of dust and concrete indicated the bullet had punched completely through its target and continued into the building beyond. Target down, Maya reported calmly. Confirmed kill, Torres added. Clean shot. Below them, the compound erupted in chaos. Guards ran in every direction, searchlights swept the surrounding hills, and vehicles raced toward the perimeter. But they were searching in the wrong places, following false assumptions about where such a shot could have originated. Maya was already packing her rifle, moving with practiced efficiency. Within 2 minutes, she and Torres were walking away from the firing position, leaving nothing behind but a small depression in the dirt where the bipod had rested. The extraction went smoothly. By the time enemy forces reached the general area of the ridge line, the helicopter was already crossing back into friendly airspace. Maya sat in the cargo bay, her rifle secured beside her, watching the Syrian coast disappear behind them. "Hell of a shot," Torres said over the engine noise. Maya nodded, but said nothing. She felt the familiar mix of satisfaction and emptiness that followed every successful mission. A bad man was dead, American lives were avenged, and the world was a marginally safer place. But killing, even justified killing, was never something to celebrate. Back on the ship, the debrief was brief but positive. The shot had been confirmed through multiple intelligence sources. Qasim was dead, his terrorist network was in chaos, and there had been zero collateral damage. "Textbook operation," Lieutenant Commander Harris said as he signed the after-action report. "Clean, precise, professional." Later, alone in her bunk, Maya cleaned her rifle one final time. Each component was checked, lubricated, and reassembled with the care of someone whose life depended on mechanical perfection. She had come a long way from the girl who had been too small to help her father. Tonight, she had reached across almost 3 kilometers to deliver justice with mathematical precision. The little girl who had hidden behind a couch while bad men hurt her family was gone forever. In her place was something new, a guardian, a protector, a weapon of surgical precision in the hands of righteous purpose. But even as Maya drifted off to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that her greatest test still lay ahead. Tonight had been about skill and precision. Someday, she would face a situation that required not just technical ability, but the kind of courage that came from the heart. That day would come sooner than she imagined. 3 years into her SEAL career, Maya Chun had earned something she never expected: genuine respect from her teammates. The nickname Doll was now ancient history, replaced by Ghost, a name that carried weight in the special operations community. She had 17 confirmed kills to her credit, each one a testament to her extraordinary marksmanship skills. But respect, Maya was about to learn, could be a fragile thing. The mission briefing took place in a secure facility outside Kabul, Afghanistan. Maya sat with the rest of SEAL Team 7 around a conference table, studying intelligence photos and tactical maps. The target was a Taliban stronghold in the mountains near the Pakistani border. "This is Hassan Omar," said CIA intelligence officer Sarah Mitchell, pointing to a photograph of a bearded man in traditional Afghan clothing. "He's responsible for coordinating attacks across 3 provinces. Our sources indicate he's planning something big for the anniversary of 9/11. Maya studied the photo. Omar looked ordinary, even harmless. But she had learned long ago that the most dangerous enemies often wore unremarkable faces. "What's the tactical situation?" asked Lieutenant Commander Harris. "Complicated," Mitchell replied. "Omar is holed up in a cave complex that's been used by fighters for decades. Multiple escape routes, excellent defensive positions, and approximately 40 fighters with him. Assault options? Limited. The approach is across open ground with no cover. Any frontal attack would result in heavy casualties, and there's a high probability Omar would escape through the back tunnels." Maya saw where this was heading. "You want a precision strike?" Mitchell nodded. "Intelligence suggests Omar has a routine. Every morning at sunrise, he emerges from the main cave entrance to pray. It's the only time he's visible, and it only lasts about 60 seconds. Range to target?" Torres asked. 3,100 meters from the nearest viable firing position. A murmur ran through the team. 3,100 meters was at the absolute extreme range of even the most powerful sniper rifles. At that distance, dozens of variables could turn a perfect shot into a complete miss. "That's a long way," Rodriguez said quietly. "It's doable," Maya replied, though she felt a knot forming in her stomach. The longest confirmed kill shot in military history was 3,540 meters, made by a Canadian sniper with ideal conditions and multiple spotters. This shot would be made in mountain terrain with unpredictable winds and no opportunity for ranging shots. Harris looked around the table. Anyone have objections to the plan? Silence. All right then. Chun, you'll take the shot. Torres will spot for you. Rodriguez, and I will provide overwatch. We insert tonight. Move to the firing position under cover of darkness and take the shot at sunrise. The helicopter insertion went smoothly, but the hike to the firing position was brutal. Maya and her team climbed through rocky terrain at 8,000 feet elevation, carrying full gear, including her Barrett M82A1 and 300 rounds of ammunition. The thin air burned her lungs, and the weight of expectation felt heavier than her pack. By 0400 hours, they were in position on a ridge line overlooking the target valley. Maya set up her shooting position with meticulous care, leveling the rifle's bipod and checking her scope's zero. Below them, the Taliban cave complex was invisible in the pre-dawn darkness. Range? Maya asked as Torres settled in beside her with his spotting scope. 3,123 meters, Torres replied after taking multiple readings. Slight upward angle, approximately 4 degrees. Maya began the complex calculations that would determine whether her shot found its target or sailed harmlessly into the rocks. At that range, gravity would pull the bullet down nearly 40 feet. Wind would push it left or right by unpredictable amounts. Even the rotation of the Earth itself would affect the bullet's flight path. She adjusted her scope settings and began reading the environmental conditions. The wind was the biggest challenge. Mountain valleys created unpredictable air currents that could change without warning. Maya watched dust patterns and the movement of distant vegetation, building a mental map of the air currents between her position and the target. As the eastern sky began to lighten, Maya settled into her final firing position. Her body became perfectly still, her breathing slow and controlled. Through her scope, she could see the dark mouth of the cave where intelligence suggested Omar would appear. 0547 hours. Nothing. 0548. Still nothing. Maybe the intel was wrong, Torres whispered. Maya remained silent, her eye glued to the scope. Intelligence was often imprecise, but rarely completely wrong. If Omar had a routine, he would follow it. At 0549, a figure appeared in the cave entrance. Maya's pulse quickened as she studied the target through her scope. The man was the right height and build, wearing traditional Afghan clothing. But at over 3 kilometers distance, positive identification was nearly impossible. Can you confirm? She asked Torres. Torres peered through his own optics, adjusting the focus for maximum clarity. After a long moment, he shook his head. Range is too great. I can't make a positive ID. Maya felt the weight of decision settling on her shoulders. Standard rules of engagement required positive identification before engaging any target. But intelligence had been clear. Omar was the only adult male who emerged from that cave at sunrise. Through her scope, Maya watched the figure kneel on a prayer rug, facing east toward Mecca. The movement was consistent with intelligence reports about Omar's routine. Target acquired, she whispered. Confirmed target? Torres asked. Maya hesitated. Every instinct told her this was their man, but she couldn't be absolutely certain. At this range, with these conditions, she might only get one shot. Target acquired, she repeated. Maya's breathing slowed to almost nothing as she settled into the shot. Her finger found the trigger, applying steady pressure. In her mind, she traced the bullet's path across the impossible distance, a journey that would take nearly 5 seconds from muzzle to target. The Barrett roared. Maya held her position, watching through the scope as precious seconds ticked by. At extreme range, there was always a delay between the shot and the observable impact. For seconds. 5. 6. Then, she saw the strike. The figure on the prayer rug collapsed instantly, the massive .50 caliber bullet delivering devastating kinetic energy even at that extreme range. Target down, Maya reported. Confirmed, Torres added. Good hit. Maya began packing her rifle immediately. At that range, the sound of the gunshot would take nearly 10 seconds to reach the cave complex, giving them a brief window before the enemy realized what had happened. As they prepared to move to the extraction point, Maya felt the familiar mixture of satisfaction and emptiness. Another terrorist eliminated, another threat removed. But something nagged at her, a small doubt about the identification that she couldn't quite shake. The extraction went smoothly, and within 2 hours they were back at the forward operating base. The debrief was positive. Intelligence confirmed that Hassan Omar was dead, killed by a single shot at extreme range under challenging conditions. Exceptional marksmanship, the intelligence officer said. This was one of the longest confirmed kills in military history. Maya accepted the praise with typical modesty, but privately, she felt pride in the accomplishment. She had pushed the boundaries of what was possible with a rifle, achieving something that few snipers in the world could have matched. The story spread quickly through the special operations community. Maya Chun, the tiny SEAL who was barely 5 feet tall, had made one of the longest sniper kills on record. Military publications wanted interviews. Training commands requested her input on long-range marksmanship programs. For Maya, it was validation of everything she had worked to achieve. She was no longer the girl who was too small to be taken seriously.